What's up, everybody? It's your boy Richard Graves. How you doing this evening? Earlier today, I did what I normally do, end up kicking up some stuff with putting one of my Facebook topics up and getting a few of my friends to comment on how they feel. Today, the thing I posted was the idea of emotional intelligence. I posted it, I said it's kind of an oxymoron to me. However, a few of my friends chimed in with their understanding of it. And a couple of them are going to come on the show with us today to talk about it. First of all, I'll have Jonathan Golden. That's one of our normal contributors. Thank him for coming back. And then we're going to have a special guest tonight, Christina Mariani. She's an interior designer, but she has to have a background in mental health, so she understands things about psychology as well. So looking forward to talking to them. So without further ado, let me bring them both on. Hello, how are you guys?
Hello, I'm doing well. How are you both?
Okay. Well, it's nice to meet you, Christina. It's the
Nice to
first
meet
time
you.
I've talked to you. Okay. And Jonathan, good to see you.
Mm-hmm.
You should have brought your boy. What's his name from the Frederick last week?
Oh, yeah.
And tell you, if Frederick is watching, man, he still ain't accepted my Facebook friends request, man. I'm telling him I'm feeling some type of way.
All right. I'm going to inbox him.
All right. So the topic we're discussing today is emotional intelligence. Now, I felt the term was an oxymoron. Now, many of you corrected my idea that it isn't so much emotion versus intelligence. It is a type of, I guess, a type of a component, I would say, of or a way of expressing, I guess, intelligence. You know, to be able to read people a certain way, control your own emotions, things like that. Now, it looks like this term was coined by some psychologists back in the 1960s. It got real popular in the in the 90s and in going forward now. So I'm gonna let you guys discuss it. Convince me that emotional intelligence is a thing on itself. Now, hear me out. I don't. It's not that I don't believe that emotions are not part of intelligence. I think they are part of our overall makeup of intelligence, but I just don't see it as an independent thing. Emotional intelligence. So elucidate.
Let,
You
let me.
know.
I'm going to say this, and I'm going to let Miss Mariani go ahead and chomp it a bit. So you have to understand this. In order to invoke an emotion, it has to most of the time it has to come through the thought process. Take for instance, somebody dies. You have to think about that and what that actually means, and that invokes an emotion. So intellect, and emotion are married together. Emotional intelligence, for me, as I understand it, has to do with how they are connected and which one chooses to rule your entire entity or take command or captain your vessel, um, and how to manage that emotion that you've now connected with a thought. And so, from that standpoint, the nomenclature may seem oxymoronic, if you will, but the actual concept is a very much an intellectual and real concept.
Okay.
So you cannot have it. Typically, you can't unless somebody hits you in the face. You're not going to have an emotion without having first thought about it.
So you think emotions require thought?
Now, so I said, not all the time. Somebody hits you in the face, you're going to have an emotion without having to think about it.
So some things we process and we have an emotional response. Some things we don't have time to process intellectually, or I shouldn't say intellectually. We don't have time to process cognitively
Right.
before we respond. Christina, what is your perspective on this idea of emotional intelligence?
Well, first I want to bring up the book. It's called Emotional Intelligence, Why It Can Matter More Than IQ, and it's by Daniel Goleman. So this book covers the topic very thoroughly, and it really gets into the importance of developing your emotional intelligence capabilities, just as we all focus, our school systems are focused on IQ. when actually your EQ, or your emotional intelligence, is equally important, if not more important. The way you're able to identify, process, and express your emotions, manage them, self-soothe, and be productive with all of that is your emotional intelligence level. So you can be very book smart, but if you don't have good emotional intelligence, you could still get into a lot of trouble.
Fascinating. Well, I'm going to say that I would think that the dichotomy being posed between emotional intelligence and IQ, I think would be a false dichotomy. It's not really a choice. The way I've seen it, the way I look at it is that there is intelligence, what you have. All right. So intelligence is not just predicated on your IQ or this emotional intelligence. I think it's a mixture of things. I think that there is an emotional aspect to intelligence, as there is a rational aspect to intelligence. There is a logical aspect to intelligence, one of knowledge, where what and wisdom, how you apply everything, and ultimately that becomes the full intelligence. I guess my problem with the term emotional intelligence may not be, I know Dr. Goldman. I've read his book, and it's not necessarily that Dr. Goldman, that I'm looking at. I'm not so much disagreeing with him. I think I'm disagreeing with what I call the weaponization of psychological and sociological terms in modern American society.
Okay.
So, for example, we have a term, critical race theory, all right, which is a sociological term. It was made by lawyers and sociologists in the 1960s to describe a thing. And it's something, it's one of many theories as we're looking at how race interacts with American society and history. I think that the term means something, yet I believe that these terms get weaponized and utilized in a social, political way, cultural way, to try to push certain agendas is what I've seen. Now, the only reason this came up to me today, as I was watching Dr. Jordan Peterson, and I was watching a discussion with some people, and then all of a sudden it became feminism versus masculinity that they're calling this now they call it red pill thing, I guess is, the red pill. It's like a new phrase for rationality. And then, you have emotions. So they were talking about emotional IQ. And, Dr. Peterson, of course, is rather somewhat right of center. So his position on it was a little bit more draconian than mine would be. But I think I hear what you guys are saying. Based on what you're saying, I can understand the concept. I think the problem I'm having with it is how the terminology is being utilized as to try to pose a dichotomy between logic and rationality as choices one needs to make when we have to make decisions predicated on all that. That's true intelligence. You got to balance it out. Sometimes it is a pure emotional response. Sometimes you have to temper that emotional response with rationality. We may feel a certain way about something, but we may have to rationally apply rationality in order for us not to overreact or even sometimes underreact to measure it. So I think it's just human intelligence, I think, is a mixture of things is what I would posit. But I do understand what Dr. Goldman was saying, in regard to what it is. Because again, I guess my response more is more of the modern social, political, cultural response. Because I don't know how you guys feel about it, but I think a lot of terms have been weaponized that are academic terms.
Yes.
Like this is emotional intelligence, obviously being a psychology term, critical race theory being a sociological legal term, or even like a term like white privilege, for example. That's something I believe when people started utilizing the term, we knew what it meant academically, but I believe it became weaponized against people. So then the true meaning of the phrase really kind of got lost in the shuffle. So now you have people responding, well, I can't have white privilege because I'm not rich or this, that, and the other thing. And because it was weaponized against people as opposed to being left in the realm of an academic term, or at least let me explain the term to you before I use it on you and I find that the left does this quite often. No offense to anyone on the left, but the presumption is that, people are stupid. The average person is stupid. So, I'm going to throw out this term and attack you with it. And, and you're too stupid to respond, I guess is what they expect people to do. But I could be wrong. Jonathan, do you see my perspective there?
I see your perspective. It almost sounds like while it may be a coined term for something that's legitimate, it seems like I'm hearing the fear of it being weaponized and certainly being overused.
Yes.
We go back to PTSD, like back in the 70s, we only heard that term used for military persons. But a lot of people who've been through any type of trauma have a PTSD. We just didn't put a name to it.
Right.
I think that with this emotional intelligence, if it's to be used healthy, we're just putting a name to being able to cope with your feelings.
Yes.
And having your intellect being the captain of that. Because at some point in time, when you're not emotional, you're going to have to come back to rationale, intellect, and being able to have a conversation of which can solve your problem. So I just think that we have another coin phrase for something we've always dealt with, and we dismiss people by it's better to say emotional intelligence than saying, oh, you're crazy. When many times what we're really saying is you don't have control over your emotions and you don't cope well.
Yep. Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
I'm seeing that the basic definition is the term emotional intelligence is to perceive, use, understand, manage, and handle emotions.
Exactly.
So I guess in itself, when people have tried to use it like they did with Dr. Peterson as emotional intelligence versus rationality, they were using it as women are emotionally intelligent and men are logical, is what they were saying. So this is a case of it being misused.
Yes.
Because that's not what this term means.
Wow.
It means when you perceive, use, understand, manage, and handle your emotions, is inherent some rationality involved in that. That's that balance that you're talking about. So my response or my posting earlier, everyone, was, I guess, to my objection to the term being utilized in some type of dichotomy between rationality or male, female, how women look at the world, how men look at the world. Now, I'm not saying we don't have differences in how we look at the world, but I just don't think it's fair because I know some quite emotional guys and I know some quite rational women. So it all really depends on the individual you're dealing with.
Absolutely.
Or would you disagree, Jonathan?
Oh, no, I want to hear what Miss Mariani has to say.
Yeah, Miss Mariani.
Well, I agree with you both completely. And I think that unfortunately in our society with our both political parties, any and everything is used as a weapon and to push their own agenda. And there's so much ignorance and misinformation that, yes, people just grab onto these very legitimate terms and throw them around uneducated, and then they turn into something that is completely inaccurate, and then it's kind of pushed off as nothing, when really it's truly an important concept that we all need to grasp. And unfortunately, either political party is just throwing it around and misusing it and just ruining everything as usual.
Right. And I would think I think if we can shift the subject a little bit, you brought up a good thing. I think what's going on with our modern political parties is, how do I describe this? I think that both parties are being pushed by the extreme elements in the parties.
Yes,
Now, it looks like, I know this may sound crazy, but it looks like that whereas the right was being pushed to the extremes, obviously, since the Tea Party movement up through the Trumpster movement, it looks like that is beginning to die down. Now, I don't know what the Republican Party is going to look like after this thing with Trump. That's the question. I don't know what it's going to look like. But I think that I think the last group elections showed that the Trump movement doesn't have as much control of the Republican Party as it had. It looks like there's some shifting going on. Whereas with the Democratic Party, what I see is a shift more to the radical right. I believe that. I mean, look at Biden getting nominated. All right, there were some people, and this is just what I saw: Democrats or people on the left losing their marbles because Biden was a white man. It's like, oh, we're putting up another white guy, another old white guy. I'm like, okay, I understand that you might want diversity because I know diversity, equity, and inclusion is a big thing right now on the progressive liberal side. But And as an African American, I just don't like the idea of diversity, equity, and inclusion being about simply putting a black person or a woman or a trans person in a position of power or anything else simply because they're a black person,
Mm-hmm.
they're a woman, or they're a trans person or
Mm-hmm.
another minority. I think that we're getting it's getting that part of the left is concerning me now
Yes.
because I think it's gone a little bit way too far.
Yes.
What do you think about that, Christina?
I 100% agree with you. It's just two very extreme groups and a lot of agendas and completely ineffective, very toxic on both sides, in my opinion. And so, yeah, I mean, I don't have much to add to what you already said.
Jonathan.
I don't like none of them, but I think that even that movement towards diversity for just the sake of damn diversity, that's
Mm-hmm.
going to get played out too.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
At some point in time, people you put in office or for whatever going to have some substance.
Yes.
Both parties' platforms is really played out. It's really antiquated. Our whole system
Yes.
is antiquated, to be honest with you. The entire system is old and antiquated. And it's good. At some point in time, we're going to have another social revolution.
Yes. Yes.
I don't know how it's going to happen. I don't know who's going to lead it.
Mhm.
But in order to really have in order to get some substantive people, we're going to have some type of another social revolution.
Absolutely.
Do for it. It's too much of the extremes.
Yeah.
I think we all can find things where we like on both sides, and we don't have to be so polarized every 4 years and have these agenda issues to spark an emotion to get you to do something instead of thinking.
Yeah.
Poor emotional intelligence is shown every 4 years.
Yes.
On a national level all the time.
Yes.
The theory is I have one issue over here I just can't let go of, and this issue over here, and I'm going to fight with these people, and it's the same thing every 4 years over and over again, and nobody stops and thinks and say, hey, this person I put in office hasn't done what I wanted them to do.
Right.
I'm not going to vote for them again. Democrat, Republican doesn't make a difference. They haven't done intellectually through thought what I've told them or wanted them to do. So I'm not going to do this again. So when we talk about emotional intelligence, it goes out the damn fucking window every years.
Yeah, because ultimately emotion rules over everything when we get to these 4-year cycles or 2-year cycles for the elections. But I'm going to point out a couple of things. One, you guys are absolutely correct. It does go out the window. But I'm believing. Let me explain what I believe what I perceive the problem to be. The last time we had a shift in parties as far as a new party forming, we know is when the Whigs died out, and then we ended up with the Republican Party. Okay, and that was prior to the Civil War. All right, so that's how long it's been since we've had any shifting in parties. I believe a primary reason for that is because we've allowed the Democratic and the Republican parties to rent-seek themselves to become part of the structure of government. I mean, I want you guys to think about this. The Republican and the Democratic parties have you and I, the taxpayers, pay for primaries every 2 years for them. All right? They don't pay for their own. We pay for that. We are facilitating that. They've rigged the system to the point where if you're an independent candidate or you try to start another party, the deck is stacked against you because of laws that they have forwarded, laws that they have pushed through to kind of close the door behind them and what we have left, because we don't have the natural evolution of things. I believe that neither one of the parties would exist in the same way, and probably another party or two would have come if they were allowed to evolve, but they're being propped up because they've locked themselves into becoming part of the structure of government itself. And that is a dangerous situation. And I think the primary system is geared to seek the extremes. For example, let's bring up one abortion. All right. We can here, but society cannot have a rational discussion about that at all.
Nope.
It's either you are pro-life to the point that you're against birth control,
Yeah.
or you're pro-choice to the point that you believe a woman should have an abortion a day before the baby's born.
Right.
I remember someone asking Hillary the question of, they asked her when she was running for president. They said, "Do you believe that a woman should be able to abort a baby a day before the abortion?" And she was so married to the dogma of the left that instead of saying that's ridiculous, absolutely not. All right, she goes, "No, that just doesn't happen." I'm like, that wasn't the question. And that type of avoidance of it means you're so religiously tied to the dogma that you have to be so pro-choice that you can't even concede that a day before a child is born, unless there's a catastrophic health issue, that a woman should not be able to just say, "I just want to have an elective abortion." And that's really sad. And then when people talk about it, everybody wants to throws out red herrings, the rape victim or and the rape victim or the woman who's about to die, is health issue. And no one is really talking about that. This is one of those times we're not talking about. What we're talking about is the chick who's using birth control or the dude who's using it, paying for these abortions for a chick, when they're using it electively because, they had 5 to 6, 7. I know, people that have had 10, because you get knocked up, you don't like baby daddy, you go have an abortion. You get knocked up, you feel like well, I would have to, I don't know, go to a different school instead of going away to this school, and these arbitrary reasons. And that's the point. And I guess the conversation can never be had about, yes, it's about women's reproductive rights, but it's also a question of when personhood begins. And no one want, but that's why we're in the situation we're in right now, because we refuse to have this discussion since Roe v. Wade was passed. Now we're gonna have a discussion now because there's no choice. Because that's the thing. Roe v. Wade got passed, and if you are a person that is for abortions, for women having them arbitrarily when they want to, the fact that they allowed for this to stand on a judicial ruling was a big mistake. That's because people don't understand ethics or understand how government works, because Supreme Court rulings can always be changed. They could always be overturned by another court. Just like, was it Plessy v. Ferguson was overturned by Brown v. Board of Education. But then there was still law sought for the equality of African Americans through the Civil Rights Movement. So if you want something to be a law, really become that type of right, it cannot stand on a court ruling. It has to be legislation to follow that. So I guess this is civics, and people, get in their feelings as opposed to thinking about the factual way that this is. So ultimately, we could have had this discussion, but now we're going to have the discussion, because now, we're going to, as a society, the discussion is going to have to be had, because states are going to pass laws. Ultimately, all of it's going to go to the Supreme Court again, and it's going to be stuff's going to be ruled unconstitutional or constitutional. Ultimately, the Congress is going to have to do something. And whatever side you're on the argument of it, we're going to have that discussion as a society. And I believe people in American society have a problem with the fact that we have to talk things out. We just can't say, you do it. We can't, we're all different. We all have different worldviews. We come from different places. As a society, part of this experiment of democracy that's predicated on the Enlightenment is when people come together and discuss it and come to a vote. And then they come to a policy, come to a policy and put it to a vote. And today, nobody wants to do that. Everybody says my way or that's it. We can't talk, I always tell people the equivalent is, I don't have a problem with people voting their religious beliefs. Some people have an extreme problem with that. If Muslims wanted to vote today to outlaw pork, they have every right to do that. But I have every right to say, no, I'm going to vote against that because I want to eat pork chops. So I don't think that I should take away their right to push the issue because of their religious view, because I have the same right to push it with my religious view or my secular philosophical view, whatever. So I say all this to say that in our society, we have to learn how to come together, discuss, debate, whatever we have to do, and then come to some type of compromise that all of society can live with. But that's me.
And that requires a very high level of emotional intelligence, which the majority of our country lacks, unfortunately, because it's not developed or taught in our school systems. And our political parties are just based on manipulation and a bunch of bullshit. So, yeah, none of us know how to have rational conversations, respectful discussions. None of us know how to agree to disagree or see each other's point of view or compromise. It's just all, fighting between two extremes and never meeting in the middle and therefore never getting anywhere. So I agree with what Jonathan said, that we're due for another revolution, and the current system is clearly not working. And it's not just that every 4 years emotional intelligence goes out the window. It's never been present, in my opinion.
No, amen. I just highlighted the point that most everybody knows. I'm totally with you. I think that it's incumbent. We're not going to get it in schools. I don't. For me, I'm not willing to trust the school system to do
Right.
that.
Right, sure.
That
Absolutely.
is it at home mom and
Absolutely.
dad.
Parenting.
Yeah,
That is every day in and day out. That should be parenting.
yeah.
Well, I think it's even bigger than that, though. I
Okay.
think that, all right, you guys are all familiar with the Enlightenment era. One of my favorite eras of history is the Enlightenment. All right. Rousseau, Voltaire, many of the great thinkers and musicians, philosophers, and artists at that time. I think that they gave us the foundations of the modern society that we have, predicated significantly on Christian thought, believe it or not.
Mhm.
And that being said, they had the saloons or the salons back in the day where people would meet. The marketplace of ideas was at the salons. That was the internet at the time, where people sat and discussed democracy. They sat and discussed. I believe people had a thirst to understand things and a thirst for things to be better at that particular point in history, which is why I'm a proponent of Western society with all its flaws as being the best model we have going in regard to how we should do this thing in human society called government. But I think that we have a great opportunity with social media to actually talk to one another, but we've squandered it. We're yelling at each other.
Yes.
No one's talking.
Right.
I mean,
Right.
and then you have platforms that want to shut down any thought that is against the whatever political side that they're on, be it Twitter or Facebook, or it's like, I guess my thing is, we can use this thing called social media for evil, or we could use it for good, and we can sit down and actually have some discussions with each other, where you can talk to somebody that you're not going to know personally from Boise, Idaho, if you're in Chicago or New York, and people, black people and white people and trans people and straight people can all have conversations and get to understand each other, and then be able to disagree and agree, and then ultimately, come up with some things that work for society in general.
Yes.
Yeah, I was going to say, when you talk about the Enlightenment period, we have so bastardized enlightenment or higher education. People used to go to college to get further enlightenment, and we have just commercialized college for everybody to go. I'm not saying that people shouldn't go, but used to go to the university for enlightenment, for higher education, as opposed to just going to the 13th or 14th grade. But that's what we've made college at this point, instead of going to school or going to college so that you can get a good job. That's not what college was for. High school was going to school so you can get a good job. College was a level of enlightenment that kind of sets you apart, as far as a degree of knowledge, a bachelor's degree, a master. I've now mastered this area of knowledge, and now I'm a doctorate of this area of knowledge. And we've taken that concept away from college, and it's been commercialized. Everybody go, and it's just a welfare system for the college anyway.
That's a welfare system for two groups of people: the universities themselves and the banks.
Yes. Oh, yeah. And so what I was going to say is, we've taken enlightenment out of the social structure, and so we don't. It's hard. it's too much to ask people to read a book. I was very happy that, Christina, you mentioned the book and Richard said he read it.
Yes.
You're not going to get that a lot.
Mm.
Now, unless it takes effort to have a bookshelf with
Yes.
books that you read. You
Yeah.
see, you can never get away from reading.
Mhm.
Social media cannot replace that. There's still things in books, whether they're electronic or
Well,
physical, difference.
the social media, I don't think is a place for education per se, even though it can be. You can have
Mhm.
online classes, but I believe, you could have classes like YouTube. Sometimes when, I'm in a doctorate program. So sometimes if I'm looking at a subject, I'll look up lectures from Harvard
Mhm.
or Yale or Princeton or wherever on the subject matter that I'm talking about
Mhm.
or thinking about in order to get different perspectives from different schools. Different schools. Some are more liberal, some are more conservative. You kind of get more of a holistic picture. But
Mhm.
I think that I hear what you're saying, Jonathan. I think that one, um, I think that people should get a basic classical understanding of the world while in regular school and high school. I don't think one should have to go to university to understand basics like emotional intelligence and
Yes.
understanding
Budgeting.
budgeting or understanding civics, understanding how government works.
Yes.
Those are important things. Those are skills that a person needs to navigate life. I,
Yes.
so I think that should be in the high school level. I also think that the trades,
Yeah.
everybody, I think we had a point in time where everybody thought they had to go to college, they had to get a degree. Don't get me wrong. I obviously am a proponent of higher education. I have 2 master's degrees. I'm working on finishing my doctorate degree, but I tell people that's not a sign of intelligence. That's a sign of me learning history or
Mhm.
theology or politics,
Mhm.
government, and being an expert in those things, being knowledgeable at least. But
Yes.
as far as intelligence, I have great political, social, political, historical discussion with auto mechanics, that don't have advanced degrees because they have an understanding. They've taken time to read some books. They've
Mhm.
taken time to understand some things. So I think
Mhm.
we should, number one, encourage people to learn not
Mhm.
just what their trade is, as part of as part of a basic kindergarten to 12th grade education, to understand some things about reality, about society, about humanity, things of
Mhm.
that nature. But I also believe that we should encourage people who want to go into trades. Remember, it became shameful for people to be in blue collar jobs. I know there's a reason
Yeah.
for that, because
Hmm.
people who worked hard in factories wanted better for their children. And I think
Right.
that, I think we kind of mixed up, being better, being in some white collar job or getting a
Mhm.
degree. I mean, we need college for teachers and psychologists and, professors and doctors and lawyers. And, you need that type of classical or that type of post secondary education. But it's
Mhm.
also no shame in going to get a degree in, pharmaceutical, and become a pharmacy tech or a paralegal or an auto
Mhm.
mechanic or a heating air conditioning guy. There's no
Mhm.
shame in that. And I think that people have got to stop the stigma of being a blue collar person as somehow negative,
Absolutely.
because I
Absolutely.
mean, all work is good. And ultimately, that's not a reflection of intelligence. That's not even a reflection of knowledge. It's a reflection of, like, an auto mechanic has a degree of knowledge that I don't have when it comes to engines and things like that. Like, I may
Mhm.
have a degree of knowledge on, politics or theology or history that person may not have,
Mhm.
but our intelligence levels are the same. We can talk. I can teach them. They can teach me. We can share and learn from each other if we respect. I respect
Mhm.
this man as an expert when it comes to engineering. He respects me as a historian. That's how it should be. But
Mhm.
also, we have this thing where everybody's coming out with these degrees. We got degrees that are for nonsensical degrees. I've seen some just nonsensical. I saw a degree from the University of Chicago. I believe it was a degree in, I think it was liberal sciences or something, a master's degree in it. And I'm like, okay, what's this degree for? And the people that were promoting it got upset with me when I'm like, what is this degree for? What are you going to do with this?
Mhm.
Or like,
Mhm.
I won't talk about a few other ones because I know some people in disciplines, so I'm going to shut up before I offend somebody. But I'm just saying, there's a place for college, and
Mhm.
there's a place for trade school, and there's a place for if you want to be a beautician or if you want to be a nail tech. There's nothing wrong with any of that. Do you, and I think that we have created a situation where people have made it a class thing in some cases, and that's just terrible. I mean, there's some people that don't have PhDs that make hella more money than I do, so, it's not, it comes down to your passion. I got my degrees because these things I was passionate about, and it just so happened it helps me in my field of work. But
now that being said, Rich, now you said that's also eloquently, and it was so wonderful. But I'm going to push back in this regard. Christina, what college did you go to?
Grand Valley State University.
Did you graduate?
Yes.
Did you graduate from college?
Yes.
No, I'm sorry, Rich. I'm looking at Rich and asking him. Rich, you graduated from college, right?
Yes, I did, sir.
So did I. I think there's something to be said for a degree of knowledge that lends to intelligence. I am so sorry, Rich. I'm going to disagree on all that bullshit you was talking about.
Oh, no, that was not bullshit. I agree with all of it. Everything Rich said, I stand by.
I'm going to push back a little bit, Christina and Rich. Listen, I am so sorry.
No, I'm going to have to say this, man.
I understand what you're saying.
All right, you know where I work at, Jonathan. All right.
Hold on, Rich. Hold on, Rich. Hold on. Your intellect is your ability to think. Thereabout. You don't have to agree with me, but just follow me.
No, I agree with you.
Your intellect is your ability to think, processed on what is coming through your senses, right?
I agree with you.
If I decide to have a wellspring of knowledge right here, my capacity for my intellect to be off the chain has now grown because now I have a degree, a well house of knowledge of which to use that intellect with. So I'm not going to push back. I'm drop kicking back on that.
I'm going to pick that up and throw it back though in a second.
I'm gonna give you your shot. So what I'm saying is, of course, there's some people who can be smarter who don't have degrees. That's not what I'm saying. But what I am saying, when I've sit under the tutelage, I've had a long-term goal of 4 years. I've had the perseverance. I've figured out how to come up with the money to pay for the classes. I've hustled. I've done all these things, maintain all of that in a lifestyle. My level of intellect, my capacity for my intellect to be better, stronger, and broader, having a degree of knowledge, I think I have more potential than someone who did not. I am so sorry. So here, one more fact. When you look at statistics, when you think about, let's take auto accidents.
I'm gonna get the emails.
Hold on. I don't care. I don't care. When you look at auto accidents, when you look at poverty, when you look at socioeconomic conditions, people with a degree of knowledge, poverty is not as much. Auto accidents aren't as much. Why is that? Driving is very, very emotional, but people with degrees tend not to have as many. Look at the numbers. When you talk about everything in society, on average, when you have people with a degree of knowledge, things are better. Sorry, I'm drop kicking back. Come on, Christina, you better bring it, baby. Come on.
Did you see me roll my eyes at you?
Yeah. The person who has a degree rolls her eyes at me. Just remember that you too have degrees.
I do have a degree, and I'm very thankful for my degree. I'm thankful my parents pushed me on to college. It was a wonderful experience at Grand Valley State University. However, I know so many people who go to college and get degrees in an area where then they cannot find a job. And I am very concerned about each individual's debt to income ratio, because there's also many individuals who go and get a degree where they can do the research ahead of time and find out that their debt they're coming out with, they're never going to be able to pay off based on the salary of the job that they are going to get with this degree. So this is something we need to be focusing on, preparing our high school students with, so that if they are going to go to college, and if they don't want to be broke the rest of their lives, they can do some simple math and figure out, does this degree lead me to real jobs? Is there a market for these jobs? And what is the salary for these jobs? And what is my debt going to be? You know, those can all be estimated. And hold on, Jonathan, I see you trying to take my turn here.
No, go ahead.
I know many people in the skilled trades who make so much money with almost zero debt. And our society is very dependent on every skilled trade,
Yep.
and all of these services that, Mr. Degree, 5 degrees can't do for us. Okay. So I am even though I have a college degree,
Yes,
I'm a huge proponent of those who skip college and know that they want to be in plumbing or HVAC or real estate or hair and nails, because there's so much money to be made. And if I really believe that people should be guided towards their passion, I think this would solve a lot of issues of mental health if we can help people figure out how to make money off of what they actually care about. Because pushing everybody to get a degree and then get a decent paying job in a field that they hate creates daily misery, daily stress, health issues, physical and mental, depression, anxiety, and resentment, and then that leads to violence. So,
Well, I'm going to say this.
Everything you said was 100% correct.
Thank you.
It goes to the first point that I made. College was supposed to be for enlightenment, not to go get a job. That was not what college was meant for.
Okay, but it got real expensive, so now you got to go to get money. If you're not going to make money, you don't need to go, unless it's a full ride or.
I agree.
But this begs the question. Okay, so for example, we have a need for mental health professionals. We have a need for medical professionals in our society.
Yes, we do.
All right. Now, the average person with MSW, unless they're working in government, doesn't make a lot of money.
That's exactly what I was referring to.
But we need MSWs, and I think this underlines a different problem.
Yes.
The fact is, a bank is supposed to loan money to you based on risk. If I go get a car, they give me a loan with an interest rate based on the risk that I pose, or they may ask me to put down a down payment if I pose a certain risk. If I don't, then I don't have to put down that down payment. I'll get a lower interest rate. I want you all to think about the fact that banks are allowed to give an 18-year-old person who just graduated out of high school, who really doesn't know what they really want to do with life, is able to give them $90,000 in loans.
Right.
All right. To go get a degree that may not get them a job to pay that loan off in any real time.
Exactly.
So the question is, whose fault is that? Well, it's a couple people's fault. One is the fault of us pushing people to get a degree that they may not necessarily need to get. But it's also the fault of the bank. The bank should not be able to loan money at that type of risk, because ultimately it is us, the taxpayer, who carries the burden if that loan is not paid back. So I think that model needs to change. I think that school should be a reasonable cost for people who, if a person feels that they really want to help people, they want to be a social worker, then darn it, they should be able to go to school without it costing $120,000 that they have to pay back. It should not be that.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be that. I mean, back in the day, people could go to school by working a night job. Somebody say, I went to school and I bussed tables and I was a waiter part-time and I paid my way through school. That is impossible now.
Right.
It can't happen. So we have created a system. I think that we need to think about this system and overhaul it. I mean, and there are free ways to go to college. If you go to the military, if you go to the Peace Corps, I think that we should have something, AmeriCorps, something like that, where people can work to help build infrastructure in cities and stuff, and, to help pay for their college expenses. But ultimately, that's one problem. But I want to get back to Jonathan.
Come on. Right.
Wait. Pause, y'all, real quick. Real quick. You really touched on the LMSW situation. I would just like to add teachers in there. Social workers and teachers are the backbone of our society. They are the most important job role. I think many could agree. And they are unfortunately destined to poverty by our system because they require highest degrees with the most amount of debt and then are paid nothing for their work, and they work around the clock. This is a serious issue that we need to talk about, because yes, I have many friends who are social workers and they're broke. Okay. And we need them. We need mental health providers, we need therapists, and yet we don't want to pay them nothing, and we want them to have, X amount of dollars in debt. It's really,
Right.
really sad. It's a huge problem.
Most people in mental health and social work do have to at least get a master's degree
Yep.
in order to make some type of money. And some have to go get their, their postgraduate degrees. They have to get PhDs, PsyDs, or, DSWs, doctors in social work. I'm going to say this: teachers and social workers, and I'm going to throw in there, other civil servants, like, our law enforcement officers, correctional officers,
Sure.
things like that. These are people that you need to have a society work. And even those are requiring, degrees, So a lot of these jobs are requiring. Many police departments require a bachelor degree. Some, want you to have a master's degree, depending on the circumstance. So I think that ultimately we have to look at our society and what's important to us. Now, teachers get a bad name because of the fact
union.
Well, no, it's because of how left
union.
No, well, union is one thing.
No, it's their union because you got bad teachers and you can't get rid of their asses.
Well, here's my thing when it comes to the teachers union. They're very different. Like, I won't go into that, but all right. So, but public sector unions do cause people
consternation in the process.
Yeah, but teachers, I think, have it in a way more so than any other public service, like in corrections or law enforcement or firefighters. People get fired. You can get fired if you do the wrong thing. You're done. Teachers have it a little bit. It's a little bit harder to fire teachers, but I think the biggest thing, teachers union, I think they just don't know how to communicate their cause too well. It seems like it's just, I get summers off. I'm going to complain all the time. And, I got a pension and most people don't have, and so people get upset about that. And then when you add the element of the left leaning stuff that's coming out of schools and even universities at this point, it gives a bad taste. So people really get ticked off at teachers and professors because of the left lean and the constant what people perceive as whining. Because you can't have a person working at Walgreens in the day and McDonald's at night with their kid in school, and they see you on TV complaining about your job, complaining about your wages, complaining about your pension, complaining about your health care, when they don't have none of that. So you got to be able to communicate that better, or at least advocate for. I think the thing with the labor movement, and this is just real brief with unions, the thing with the labor movement needs to be about labor, not about unions. So what I mean about that is it needs to evolve also. Labor should push the line for all American workers. All right. Because that's what it's really about. It's not about should this person have healthcare benefits, it's why doesn't everybody else have them? That's what needs to be pushed, because otherwise it separates people out to this person's in a labor union and I'm not. And then you have people who work for a living arguing with each other as opposed to working together towards making the standard of living better for everybody in general.
So I
didn't get on you, Jonathan. Let me get to you.
I'm from a labor town. I'm from Detroit, so
that labor union.
Go ahead and try to downplay your intellectualism and getting your degrees. Come on with it.
All right,
come on with it.
I'm not downplaying degrees, my friend. I've quite often, I am so Christina. So for full disclosure, I am
got a whole litany of degrees.
I am what is called an aristocratic elitist. All right. I don't think I'm better than anybody. I just think that how do I describe it? People need to understand who they're talking to. All right. That being said, I respect people who take the time to get a degree because it means that you are a person knowledgeable in a certain discipline. I respect that. I don't necessarily think that makes you more intelligent than someone. All right. And let me finish. I have advanced degrees. All right. And I've had conversations with people who are homeless that have no degrees, that are incredibly intelligent, incredibly knowledgeable.
Homeless people who are incredibly intelligent.
Yes, I've talked to some homeless.
I'm going to say it to you one again.
Yeah.
homeless people who are incredibly intelligent.
Yes, because it's not just
I'm
intelligence.
gonna say it
People,
one more time so you
Not
know.
in it.
no. Hear me out, Jonathan. There are people that have gone through some unfortunate traumas that
I
have
agree.
changed the course of their lives.
I
And
agree.
there are some people who may, I'm not saying they haven't made, I mean, I'm intelligent. I've made bad choices. Luckily, I've
We
survived
all
them,
do.
you know, but some people get in situations, and I'm not saying that a person is not responsible for their choices, but I'm saying some people have, you know, some people are not as mentally fortified as others, and some things that might me and you might be able to breeze through might be totally catastrophic to someone else.
I agree.
So I'm not saying that they are perfect people. I'm saying that they're intelligent people that I've had intelligent discussions with, and they're quite knowledgeable. But I'm saying my thing is this: even though I'm an aristocratic elitist, it has nothing to do with my degrees. You know,
Ah,
it has everything to do. I mean, what did I tell people? I told people one time on the page, you know, someone said, "Do you think you're smarter than everyone because of your degrees?" And I said, "No, I was smarter than you guys before I went to school." All right, it has nothing to do with that. You know, I was more intelligent than you before I had a degree. The only thing these degrees do is make me more knowledgeable than you in this particular area. I'm more knowledgeable than the average person in history and theology and in government. However, I'm not more knowledgeable about astronomy, astrology, biology, chemistry. There's a whole lot I don't know. All right. So I think the stat that you brought up about automobile accidents and degree level, I think there are other factors.
Yes, way more factors.
Other factors. I think that when a person does get a degree, ultimately they do make more money than the average person. All right. That creates a
that's a
different
fact.
scenario. Yeah, that creates a different scenario from the jump. All right.
I think that's
So
changing though, guys. Isn't that
yeah.
changing?
Well, no, I think on average a degree does get people paid more.
I
All
think
right.
it has in the past. Is that
Yeah.
is that trajectory continuing
Well,
currently?
we don't know.
Still
You know, it
saying.
depends. I mean, of course, you got to lump everybody up there with degrees. You got your social sciences degrees with teachers and social workers and criminal justice people with law enforcement degrees that make public sector money. But
Yeah,
then you
that's
get
what I'm saying.
but then degrees. We got to count all these engineers, all these MBAs, all these lawyers, so all these doctors
Right,
and
but are we
dentists.
counting all the
Yeah.
people with degrees who end up with a job at, not within their degree, making no money? Are those
But
being tracked?
I don't think that reflects, and I have to look at the stats of the degree, the amount of people with degrees that are not utilized them. I think we have to do a show about that because I have to do some research on that, because I know people that work with me that have degrees in fine arts. They're not working in, they're not actors or actresses, but they are able to get promotions based on the fact they actually do have a degree. In my field is not. I'm not a history teacher. I don't work as a curator at a museum. I'm not a professor, but my degrees, and because they are social science degrees, have helped me in my career. So it all depends on the circumstances, and it all depends on what we're talking about. So I have to actually look at the hard stats on that. But I did look at a quick statistical look at what Jonathan was saying about automobile accidents. And it is a fact that people with higher education have less automobile accidents.
Right, but there's
And
a
I think,
million other factors in there
right.
that
But
we're
I
not
think that,
considering.
well, I think that is one factor. Like you said, you're right. That is one factor. I don't think that it is logical, to conclude. I don't think
Whoa.
it's logical to
Yes, it
conclude
is, and I'll tell you
that
why.
the primary agitating factor is
It's their
education.
degree. No.
Right, their degree. I believe that there
They
are
got
some
better
other,
running cars. How about that? Their
yeah,
parents all gave them better running
they
cars. How
have
about
better.
that?
Well, I think there are other social economic, many social economic factors that go into play there.
Yes, how
And
about
that,
how about they went through driver's training school when they were 14 years old and they didn't get their license at 18 by taking a test? How about that? They got more hours and more driving practice, and they were driving in better areas with better street signs and better traffic lights.
You
that is true.
saying that only proves the point, though.
It's
What,
not about the degree, it's about the
No,
socioeconomic
no, no,
status.
no, no, no. When I mean degree, so you and I, all three of us, know what it took to get that. It's not about the degree. It's about the
I don't know,
lesson.
Jonathan. I
Hold
know
on,
too
hold
many.
on, man. Hold on. It's
Uh-huh.
about the lesson you learned, the journey to get it.
Sure, to stick with something that long, that's challenging, sure.
But is it really that challenging though? Because I know so many people with bachelor degrees and master degrees, and even PhDs that are morons.
That just cheated their way through.
But they're morons in
morons.
They're not.
They're morons. They're knowledgeable in the field, but they're morons.
That's my point. They're not morons in their field.
No, well, they might be, but at the very least, they are knowledgeable.
They're peer reviewed. It can't be
for PhDs, perhaps. But when we're talking about people with bachelor's degrees or even master degrees, and nothing against anyone's bachelor or master degree, come on, man. I know a lot of people.
But here's why there's you guys are talking about the extremes. You're talking about there's people that go to college and they're not in their field and degree. Of course there are. But how anecdotal really is that? And let me finish. Hold on. There's certain degrees that you have to be intellectually sound to even get. Number one in math. Anybody who knows mathematics, math teaches you how to think. You have to be intellectually on another level to get a degree in math, or on another level to get a degree in programming, computer science. You have to intellectually be off the charts. You cannot get these degrees without a high level of intellect.
But I would make the same argument for a person. All right, take Neil deGrasse Tyson, my favorite astrophysicist.
You can't get astrophysics with a high degree of intelligence.
Hear me out. I know Neil deGrasse Tyson is intelligent. I don't think he's any more or less intelligent than I am. Period. And he's much stronger than I am in mathematics. I'm much stronger than he is in philosophy, because I think philosophy requires you to be able to think abstract in a way.
It's mathematical too.
Right. But obviously philosophy and science are related fields, regardless if they wish to admit it or not, because science comes from philosophy. We know that. But my thing is, some people have certain type of, and I'm not a neuroscientist, but I'm saying some people are strong mathematically that can't tie their shoes, you know what I'm saying, because they're strong mathematically. All right, that's good. Some people are extremely gifted there, but I'm saying that doesn't make that person, Neil deGrasse Tyson, as smart as he is, doesn't make him more intelligent than the guy who is cutting hair. It doesn't make him more. It makes him more knowledgeable in astrophysics and physics. All right, because he chose to do that with his. Now, I hear what you're saying, Jonathan. If you learn quantum theory and you're thinking on that level, it does make you use your brain more. Like as a philosopher, I use my brain a lot by thinking thought experiments and trying to figure out the universe and existence. So I think that it's sort of like your muscles. Like if I lift weights all the time, my arms are going to get bigger. We all have the same capacity of arms, okay, as far as, getting buff or whatever. So I guess it's the exercise of utilizing your brain in a certain way. I think that you're saying that the degree process does. It makes people think, perhaps. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead, Christina.
Thank you. Okay, gentlemen, I just need to say that I personally would rather live in a society full of individuals who have a high level of emotional intelligence over a high level of standard IQ. As we all know, Albert Einstein and others who are extremely smart by your standards, Jonathan, actually have a lot of mental issues and a low EQ. They have low emotional intelligence. There's a lot of mental health issues that come with that. And that creates a lot of other risks and problems. So I think there's many different kinds of intelligence, and to try to stack them against each other and say which ones matter more than others, I think is kind of a silly game to play. And I think I have a problem with people who undervalue skills such as business, people skills, empathy. There's like so many skills that you can't get through a degree, that you have to learn on your own in life, problem solving, a lot of just so many different types of intelligence that I think is missing.
I'm waiting for Jonathan.
Articulated that well.
Wait, before you go, Jonathan, I have to agree with her. I don't agree that, I understand what she's saying, that, high IQ, high EQ. I just think that I prefer where people have a balance. All right. I believe people should be knowledgeable about things. I think the average person should know who Plato is. The average person should know this. The average person should be able to talk to you intelligently about how our civics works, how our government was formed. The average person should know who the founding fathers were and what they stood for and why we have this government structure the way we do. I think the average person should be able to do mathematics, at least to an algebra level, because it helps them in life. Or even geometry. Geometry is a proven fact that when you learn geometry, it makes you learn how to be rational better by learning geometry. So, but at the same time, I hear what Christina's saying, life skills, some things you learn by life. There's things I learned in Marine Corps boot camp when I was a Marine. I learned a lot in Marine Corps boot camp that I didn't learn in college. All right. A lot of skills that I apply to life, so I think that there are different ways of learning and different things that we learn. But, I do understand, I value formal education. I do value it because I do want my surgeon to have gone to medical school.
Sure,
I want whoever's teaching me history
That's
to
all I'm
have
saying.
went to school
That's
for
not
history.
all you're saying, Jonathan.
Let me finish. Hold on.
No, that isn't all he was saying. You're right.
Hold on,
That's
Rich.
all
Hold on,
you
man.
were saying.
Rich, listen.
Mhm.
Don't misunderstand me. There's different types of intelligences.
Mhm.
What you guys are pushing back with is a social intelligence.
Yes.
For some people, that's different than what I'm talking about. You're talking about being able to be social intelligence, or being able to socially network and talk to people is different than what I'm saying. So when you talk about a person who's smart but can't tie his shoes, he has some social or environmental thing that's blocking him. Also, when you make your counter argument, what you're really talking about is the lack of emotional intelligence. You're not talking about intellect, which I'm on. So in that aspect, I agree with you in what you're saying, Christina and Rich. But your rebuttal is the smart person who has low emotional IQ, which
Right,
exists,
right.
which
That-
is
well,
the
that's
whole
not
which is the whole
that's
foundation of why we're talking.
right.
But what
But
I'm
I'm just
talking
saying, even like, okay, so I am a historian, right?
about,
All right, and a theologian and a political scientist. But I've talked to people without degrees in any of those fields that are just as knowledgeable regarding those things as I am, or at least knowledgeable enough to keep up in a discussion.
oh, of
All right,
course.
that have never been to college.
But
All right,
hold on, Rich. Hold on,
Mhm.
Rich. All of
That's
that is
what I'm
true.
saying.
All that is true, but it's anecdotal. You're not going, especially theology, because
Well,
I
the
can
average person, no,
yes,
I agree with you. All right, so I
that's
have to
all
say,
all
on
I'm
average,
saying.
yes.
What you guys are saying is true, but it's anecdotal. Yeah, you can have a person who's homeless who's intelligent. Their problem isn't intelligent. It may be substance abuse. There's high instances of mental illness in the homeless population.
Mm-hmm.
That's part of the problem. Why you have homelessness is because they haven't been properly diagnosed with the mental illness they have. They get on substance and all these other kinds of things. So I agree with all of that. That is true. But
But
Well, full
what?
disclosure. Go ahead, Christina. Go ahead.
But what, Jonathan?
what I am saying is that the instances you're bringing up are anecdotal. Rich, the
Okay,
average
you are
Christian,
correct.
hold
And
on,
I'm
the average Christian is not going to be able to have a theological conversation with you, who's a theologian, me, who have training in apologetics. They're not going to be able to do it. And that an intellectual person that you might find that may be on our level is few and far
Sure.
between.
okay. So I'm going
Sure.
to tell you this, Jonathan. We're gonna get hate mail.
I don't
You
care.
can't tell Christians. All right, so I'm going to say this. Full disclosure, because Jonathan's seen me dress people down for this. There are quite often I've told people when they want to say, well, let me tell you about history. I'm like, oh, pump your brakes. I am an actual historian. You're not going to teach me anything about the subject. I can teach you about it and we can discuss it, but you're not going to, because you watched an episode of whatever on History Channel. No, we're not having that discussion. I agree with you. So I will say that on average, the average person is not able to keep up with the discussion with me that doesn't have an advanced degree in history.
That's all.
However, you're right. I am speaking anecdotally when I have said that there are people who I've met without advanced degrees who I've been able to intelligent discussions these things with. So I hear what you're saying, but I'm just saying my degree makes me knowledgeable in history. It doesn't make me smarter than that person. That's all I'm saying. It makes me more knowledgeable. That's I
Okay,
have a
so
broader knowledge base, a broader understanding of the
okay, so Chris,
methodology of how to
right.
look up history. Right.
Methodology being a way of processing the information, which is intellect. But
Yeah.
anyway,
All
so
right.
so let me ask you this, Rich and Christina. Where does knowledge or the amount of knowledge play into intellect?
Well,
Because
knowledge
you
is
have to have it.
you have to have knowledge as well. Part of intelligence, like I said, is well, part of intellect, I guess, is to be able to have knowledge, the wisdom to know how to utilize that knowledge,
Mm-hmm.
the rationality to understand how to apply it,
Mm-hmm.
and the emotional intelligence, as you guys say, in order to know, to feel it out, feel out what is appropriate, when it's appropriate, like I have to have the emotional intelligence to know if I'm condescending to someone,
Yes.
I
I'm glad
have to
that
know,
you
but
are.
now then but I also have to have the emotional intelligence to know, yes, I'm choosing to be condescending to this person because I
Yeah.
believe they're a moron and I want them to feel that I believe they're a moron. But then there are times when the people are innocently having a conversation where I tone it down. In fact, most people I talk to, I tone it down. If I'm talking to people about religion, particularly, I tone it down. I don't use a lot of theological jargon or religious jargon. I keep it at. I don't make it an academic discussion. I make it a personal one. The only time I take it academically when it comes to the fields that I'm knowledgeable in is when someone says some dumb shit. All right. Normally something like, well, I took a theology class while I was at so-and-so's junior college and you're wrong because, okay, now it's time to pull out the paperwork. All right. So that's when I do that. When someone condescends to me, then I usually make it very plain to them that, okay, you're talking to the wrong one, so that's why I say that. But on average, I don't talk to people that way. I talk to people on a level we're having a conversation, and I think that's the best way to approach conversations with people, unless I'm in a teaching environment where I'm actually instructing others.
So Christina's been cussing me out with her
Yeah,
eye.
she's got that look. So I'm waiting to hear what she has to
I'm
say.
just sitting here quietly.
I'm waiting over Christina. Feel free, jump in. What do you have to
I
say?
got a
To
lot
that?
of thoughts I'm filtering and trying to put into appropriate words here.
She's using her
Using that
emotional
intellect, huh?
She's using her emotional intelligence now.
Oh man, yes, I'm working on it. So, I obviously valued knowledge and intellect. However, when it comes to being able to be a successful human being in our society, I think it takes so much more than just accumulation of knowledge, right? How are we applying this knowledge and how is it helping us in everyday life? For me, I don't really care if someone can keep up in a conversation with me about specific topics per se. I can always find somebody to intellectually stimulate me in different areas. It's more important to me to have somebody who is able to fix my plumbing, fix my car, right? People who are problem solvers, people who specialize in certain skills that the rest of us don't have, business owners, knowing and learning how to make money, again, off of what you're already good at, off of your strengths and your passions with minimal overhead. I'm all about, all of that. So it's great to have knowledge. It's great to have, deep discussions, and it's great to have degrees. But in everyday life, I know a lot of people who just stay at college forever and become professional students, and they work on campus and they keep getting degree after degree. And then they come out with a doctorate degree and they have no job experience for their resume. And so then they're overqualified when they interview for jobs. And, if that wasn't all paid for by, scholarships, they're in big trouble. So that is an issue that I see happen a lot. And I just am really against the whole concept of pushing everybody to college to get a bunch of degrees to show how smart we are.
I think.
Well, hold on, y'all. The smartest man in the room knows that he knows nothing at all, right? The most powerful man in the room is the quietest in the room. So for me, it's not always a peacocking contest. It's like, okay, who is most empathetic? Who is able to make money and support themselves and be kind to others and serve others. That's all I really look for in our society.
Real quick though, I want to say that as far as having a deep conversation about history, it's not about that. I think that it is important for a citizen to be informed.
Sure.
And I think that, yeah, it's great to be able to make money. Maybe you know how to make boxes of paper and you make money and you make millions of dollars. That's great. I respect that. But that is irrelevant to you being a good citizen. Okay. I think that the average citizen should understand the history of our country. The average person should understand what happens when you vote, what this is about. I'm not saying people have to sit there and have deep historical conversations with me about Genghis Khan or something. I'm saying that if you don't understand, like, for example, I have to educate people all the time about the history of African Americans in this country. You know, it's like, come on. Or we got people like Kanye West educating a group of morons, a league of morons who follow him about the Holocaust. That's the historical idiocy that I think is just, but I don't think you should have to go to college to know
exactly. That's what I'm saying.
This should be taught. You should have to go to college to teach it. But it should be being taught in high schools. Exactly. There's no reason an American student should graduate from American high school and still be stupid enough in history to actually question if the Holocaust existed.
But here's the problem.
Question if Jim Crow actually happened. That's what I'm talking about.
Right.
I think that we should have our career fields, whatever that is, our passion. We make money off of what we do. That's what we do. If you enjoy fixing cars, fine. If you enjoy doing nails, fine. But at the same time, we should have a society of people who understand deeper concepts than, okay, I go to work, I punch a clock, I make money, I bought a car, I pay my bills. There needs to be more to it than that. If we're going to have a society that flourishes, which is why I mentioned the Enlightenment, because it wasn't just the people in the universities. It was the average person having these discussions. While Rousseau and Voltaire, being educated, were able to initiate the discussions. The average Joe was understanding the concept of democracy. That's important. That's as important as learning how to fix a car. In fact, more so, because the society upon which we have here, this is the society we have, understanding the structure and being able to support and forward that is the most important thing, because if we don't know those things, then society could change in a way where you can end up with something you don't like and you can't make money in.
Right. But like you said, all of that should be available in K through 12, and it should not take degrees and thousands of dollars of debt to have basic, foundational knowledge like that.
No.
So to the school point, I got 2 points. To the school point, with the advent of Common Core, all that extra shit was pushed out. I don't know, you guys know what Common Core is?
Yeah.
Common Core, you only got 4 fucking subjects they're really gonna teach you. That's it. So with the advent of the Bush administration putting this bullshit Common Core, I hate Common Core. I hate it. This bullshit Common Core, they're not leaving any room for that. You do have some high schools who have some elective things, but they're selective, but it's not on a mass scale across the board. And that the problem is the fucking Common Core. Now back to degree. When I say degree, let me broaden that. I mean a level of education above high school. That could be a license, it could be a certificate, it could be a master plumber, electrician, all those people. Even to get to that, have a level of the same 4 or 5 year internship that I would going to college. The level of intellect it takes to do those jobs is absolutely extraordinary, particularly in math and electrician. So don't misunderstand when I say just going to college. That means any level of education beyond college that you do.
Well, I think because
it's not just college.
Right. I think because our public education system is so horrible. I think, unfortunately, let's just be real. High school does not prepare people for any meaningful jobs.
Nope.
It doesn't prepare people. Right. Well, it used to. And that's the problem. It used to be where people were able to learn a trade in high school.
Yeah.
If we want people to function as citizens in our society, then high school should prepare. And if we're going to admit that it doesn't, then at the very least, in junior college, those 2 years should be free as well.
Yeah. Exactly.
Right?
Say it again.
Yeah. And like I said, as far as advanced degrees, those are generally for people who have decided, I'm going to be a teacher. I'm
Right.
going to be a professor. I'm going to be
Right.
a lawyer. I'm going to be a doctor.
Right.
I want them people to have advanced degrees because they should know more than I do
Absolutely.
about what they're
Absolutely.
teaching me. So that's the reality. And I'd be an improper historian if I didn't know more about history than
Wait,
the average
Wait,
historian.
Rick, so you didn't want somebody on YouTube to do surgery on you? I'm just saying.
Absolutely not.
I watch a whole lot of YouTube videos on removing the gallbladder, bro. Come on.
Well, that's how our society works. You have to understand, we have a society that really does have a problem with experts now. Everybody's an expert now because everybody thinks we have access to a lot of information that makes people believe that they're expert in things because they have access to information. But like we said, they don't understand the methodology to apply that information. And of course, then also there's the whole thing of confirmation bias where we seek information that lines up what we already think. And the one thing that we should be learning in college is that you have to challenge your biases and you have to look at multiple sources to get a holistic picture. And and you have to go where the data takes you, even if it goes somewhere that you don't want it to go. You have to admit when you're seeing something that isn't what you want to see. So with the average person utilizing YouTube and Facebook and Twitter and whatever to become experts in things like history, all right, it becomes a shit show, for lack of a better term.
Yes.
And that's why you have people following me. That's why I had so much vitriol for Kanye West and Kyrie Irving and what's his name, the baby maker boy. What's his name?
Oh, you talk Nick Cannon.
Nick Cannon, for their ridiculous, stupid comments when it came to religion, social anthropology, and history. And then I got even more hate and discontent for every idiot on Facebook or YouTube or Twitter who actually tried to challenge me for calling out their lunacy, because I'm like, okay, at a certain point, you have to realize some people are historians and you're not. And you're right, Jonathan. The reality is the average person isn't going to be carrying that type of information about history or theology to debate it with me. All right.
Or to even have an intelligent conversation. That's my point.
I generally tell people, I stop the conversation and say, okay, at a certain point, I can instruct you. There's nothing else for us to talk about. And people take that as arrogance, but no, it's just that I get tired of morons thinking that they can sit here and debate me about something they clearly don't know. It'd be the equivalent of me, having a debate with you about business or having a debate with MSW about social work when those are not my fields. I can talk intelligently to a certain degree, but I have to acquiesce to the fact this person has a knowledge base superior to mine in that particular area. And I don't know why people just have a hard time doing that.
Yes.
I'm not going to argue with my auto mechanic about what he's doing to my car, because I don't have the knowledge base to do so.
Right.
I don't have the knowledge base to argue with the nail technician and tell her that she's doing my pedicure wrong. I don't. At the end of the day, we have to accept that people get trained in things to know them better than the average person, whatever that is, But I'm done with my rant. But Jonathan, you're gonna give me all kind of hate mail, bro.
Which we hate mail? You guys end up agreeing with me. We agree, really.
We agree, and I want to thank you all.
I just came from a different angle.
We're all on the same page, y'all.
Yeah, we don't want to. We don't want to upplay getting a degree too much.
But you don't want to
downplay it either.
Right. You don't want to downplay it because it did take me some doing to accomplish the degrees that I did, and it took me stretching my thinking to understand the world in a way that I didn't understand prior to it. So that is meaningful. And it is accomplishment for people to accomplish their degrees. That's why we have those ceremonies, but I do understand what Christina's saying. We got to stop pushing people in degree fields that they don't really want to be in.
Right.
And we have to let people know what the true cost of it is. And then we have to have a discussion about why does it cost so much in the first place? Because at the end of the day, when you need teachers, you need social workers, you need doctors, you need lawyers, you need police officers, you need firefighters, you need military officers, you need people that
there's a teacher's crisis here in Michigan. It's a crisis. We don't have enough
teachers.
Yes.
Yeah,
we don't have enough teachers, and we don't have enough nurses.
And see, and that's where the market has to pay. People have to pay for what they want. You have to.
I would just like to clarify what I was saying. And I mean, I do value college greatly. The college experience is very enlightening no matter what degree you go into. And, you know, degrees are very valuable. My concern is the unaffordability and the ignorance and just being there, you know, racking up all this debt with no clue, no path, and no plan after graduation to make any type of money. That's my concern, is pushing everybody to college with no plan, no preparation, no income to debt preparation. That is a crisis. That is a serious problem. And that is all I'm talking about. I don't mean to downplay knowledge or degrees or college. This system is broken and I'm not a fan of it.
Yeah, I think
it's not only broken, we're being manipulated to continue the welfare of it.
Right.
If you stop giving people these loans, guess what the university is going to have to do?
They got to lower their prices.
Exactly.
And that's the whole point. The
Exactly.
reason why the prices are so astronomical is because they made a deal with the devil with these banks.
Yes.
All right. And so at the end of the day, we're making some people very rich.
Yeah.
And a lot of people carrying a lot of debt. That's why I'm all for the student loan forgiveness and all that stuff. People want to say, well, the people are stupid enough to get the loan. My thing is the banks are stupid enough to give it.
Right.
If I go right now to go get a $40,000 car, they want my income tax returns.
Right.
All right, I can go get $120,000 in student loans, and they're not going to ask me for any of that.
You're right.
Because we created a system that doesn't make logical sense. You know, it doesn't make sense. And that's why we have so many universities offering so many degree programs and people feeling they have to do it. But also there's certain jobs that are now requiring degrees that really probably shouldn't be, you know? And at the end, I mean, take, for example, managers at Walgreens or Target or like Walmart or something. I know that the people who become managers now, they're requiring, in some of these cases, people to have bachelor degrees. Now, don't get me wrong. I understand a business degree is nice to have, or finance degree. But if you have worked at the Walgreens for 5 years and you know everything about the store, why shouldn't you be? The logical thing is for you to become a manager.
Exactly.
Based on your work ethic.
Experience.
And now requiring a degree for that's just a little bit, to me, that's just a way to help the whole rent-seeking game.
Rich, no.
No, so what, Jonathan?
You're saying a person can't manage a Walgreens without?
No, and here's why. I have a business administration degree.
Okay.
Okay. So I've been in I came out in 6 months. 6 months out of college, I got a degree in my field and worked in it for almost 20 years.
Okay.
I'm not going to say you have to have a degree, but just because you work somewhere doesn't mean. So Michael Jordan is the best player ever. He's a horrible coach.
Okay,
just because you're good at it doesn't mean you can coach it or you can lead it.
Okay, but wait, do you think Walmart managers need a degree though? Is that what you're saying?
Well, when you're running the entire store, I would rather have a degree person because there's certain financials and P&Ls you need to understand and why it affects everything.
Okay, so let me ask you this.
Can someone learn it? Of course they can.
All right, so I agree with you, Jonathan, to a degree, and let me explain. All right, so let's say you're working at McDonald's, right? They're not just going to promote you just because you show up every day. All right, you have to show some degree of.
They put you through.
Right, but those classes are not. They are very nice classes, but they send you to Hamburger University. They have a management training.
You just say
program.
University.
Yeah, but it's not. But you're not taking out student loans to go. But
my point is, they call it university for a reason.
Right. Well, I mean, I'm not saying that the person doesn't need to be trained to be a manager. All right. I'm saying that you should be able to work at a store or anywhere else and learn and be good at it and be recognized. And then we're going to put you in. If we want you to have an MBA or that bachelor's degree in business, hey, you know what? We like you. We identified you. We're going to pay for you.
There you go.
To get this. And the cost of us paying this for you is you got to work for us for 4 years. You got to sign this. 4 years after you get your degree, you got to work for it.
So here's why I'm so adamant about that to this degree, because you're right. I don't really disagree. Again, it goes back to when you start in college and you actually finish 4 years, some people even 3 years, there's a level of life lesson that is important to bring to the workplace. You have a short-term goal. You've learned long-term goals. You've learned how to finance both of those goals. You've understanding what struggle is. There's empathy there because you understand it. There's certain things that experience lends to when you have it. I'm not saying you can't get it in other ways. I'm just saying this is the most common way that we know of to get that level of experience in a long-term goal, the hustle of it, that you will not get anywhere else. Skill trades the same thing. You got 5 years, 4 years. You have a long-term goal, short-term goals. You got to figure out how to finance it. There's something to be said about that experience. You have your first. Hold on. You have your first experience away from home, which is very important, where you learn how to grow up. Either you're going to sink or you're going to swim. There's a life lesson involved in going to college that you're not going to get anywhere else.
Well, the first time I was away from home was when I went to the military.
Same thing. That's no different to me.
Right. So what I'm saying though is what I just said in regard to, okay, if you identify someone who works in your business as being potential for management, then pay for school for that person with them agreeing to work for your company. What I'm saying, Jonathan, is no one is figuring out how to pay for college. Everybody's paying for it the same way now.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. So in that way, that's a bad system. All right. I think that if you're going to require a degree, you should be identifying people within your company or even out in the street if you want to identify them. Hey, I think you'd be great. Let's put some money behind you, invest in you. All right. And that because, hey, I enjoy working at the store. That's what I like to do. Okay. I think that that's a good way to do things. Mm-hmm. I mean, you see that in the military. If you're a great non-commissioned officer, somebody might say, hey, Corporal, I think you should go get your bachelor degree in military science, become an officer. And they pay for it. And you just have to agree to stay in the military.
I got a question for you, Christina.
I'm ready.
Who is the smartest person that you know?
Well, that's a really difficult question.
Or at least one of the smartest persons that you can think of. Let me put it to you that way.
I mean, I don't know because again, I believe there's so many different kinds of intelligence, and I really don't rate what.
There's 11 intelligences right now. I think they've come up with 11 different types of intelligence. I agree, I understand, but tell me a person you think is highly intelligent that you know.
I mean, do I have to pick somebody that everybody knows? Or?
No, just somebody in your life. You don't have to name them necessarily, but just pick someone.
Okay, yeah, I have somebody in mind. He's a real estate investor, highly successful businessman, has many businesses, and has excellent people skills, excellent coaching skills, former military person, a lot of empathy, expert in a lot of useful areas.
Okay, thank you. Rich, what's the most intelligent person you know?
You're the most intelligent person I know.
What you know?
I've had a couple supervisors. I won't give their rank out because that kind of indicate who they are.
What is their background?
One of them's background is social work. The other one is drug addictions.
Would you call this person highly intelligent and intellectual?
Absolutely.
Okay. So
all right, then I have one other person that I would say, and they are a computer programmer, engineer guy.
Okay. So thank you guys for proving my point.
What? How do we prove your point?
They're all educated.
I don't even know if my person has a degree, actually.
You went to the Marines. That's an education.
Okay.
Yeah,
but actually, when you say,
you see my point?
But wait, real quick, when you said pick a highly intelligent person, the most intelligent person I know or whatever, I actually picked like the most successful person I know by my definition of success, because to me, it goes hand in hand. To me, you have to be intelligent to be successful, but what is success and what is intelligence? So
no, I agree with everything you're saying, and I left it open-ended for a reason.
Yeah,
and you guys indubitably prove my point. All I'm saying,
if your point is a person needs to have some type of,
I didn't say they needed to. I didn't say they needed to.
In order for them to be well-rounded to what we're talking about, the thing that's consistent is the person has had something besides high school. They've graduated, they've gone to boot camp, they've gone to the military, they've gone to college, they've gone to trade school, they've done something that has moved them forward.
Right, but Jonathan, but as we are all saying, it's not only university, which I think was your initial argument. Now we're including trade school, military.
Well, I had to clarify that it's education, period, because trade schools are a different type of education.
Right.
I agree. So we would agree with you on that. I will say this though, to Christina's person, I know the type of person she's talking about that hangs out in the university village for their whole damn life.
Yeah.
And they don't know what to do when they leave it.
Yeah.
I think that's few and far between though, because I only know.
No, I got a handful that I know directly.
Yeah, but I mean, and I know some directly. People who, but most of the time they end up working at the university because that's where their passion's at, and that's where they're comfortable
they stay there
that's
forever. You're right.
Because that's when I debate PhDs sometimes. Like I had a friend of mine, I told, man, I wish I'd have got my PhD back when I, was in my early 30s, as opposed to when I got 50. And he said, yeah, but it would have made you a different type of intellectual. I said, what do you mean? He says, you came to the discussion. I got my bachelor's degree when I was 40. All right. So from that point on, that's how I built the rest of my academic career. But ultimately, I brought all that life experience from being in the military, from working in financial services for as long as I did, from working in private security when I did. There's a lot I brought to going through life, going through elections, going through just life that I brought to it. So when I'm having discussions with my peers, when we're having our peer review discussions, mine are a lot more intense because I'm able to bring some real life perspective to it that they don't have because they've been sitting on campuses, forever. And the real world doesn't work like a campus, as you all know.
Exactly. That's my whole thing is real life experience is the best teacher in my opinion. So I don't really value our higher education system because I feel like it's as flawed as our K through 12 system, which is trash. The curriculum is trash. And my program in college, I feel like was also trash. So I personally am a hands-on learner, and I don't learn well in lecture-style environments. I think it's really easy to just memorize a bunch of information, regurgitate it for a test, and forget about it later. And to actually apply the knowledge to real life is a whole nother ball game that you don't get in that degree program typically unless there's an internship involved.
But not even that though. You get the people that come out. I always tell people the college education is what you get out of it. All right, because you can have people go through the same program and they're going to come out very different.
Very different.
And it's not necessarily reflected by the grades either, because grades again, that's memorization and
exactly.
But I think that when people go to school to learn something, it all depends on the other factors,
Yeah.
Again, what are you trying to do with it? Where are you going with it? What have you gone through to get it? There's a lot that goes on, so, but I hear what you're saying that, like, for example, there are certain things you do learn in a lecture way that you're being taught.
Okay.
When I was for example, in the military, all right, when I went to boot camp, all right, there are things I learned running with packs and this, that, and the other thing. And then there were classes that we had where I was taught military history and the structure of the military, the rank structure. These are lectures. I didn't apply it until I got to the fleet. When I saw an officer from another branch, I knew what this meant when he had it on, or I knew what the naval ranks were, or what the Air Force ranks were, the differences were to address them properly or to work with them properly, to work with my NATO allies. I learned NATO rank. So there's a lot. You're going to learn things in a lecture way. You're going to learn things in a hands-on way. I learned how to fire a rifle. There was a very serious hands-on component to it. But there was a lecture in this is a gas-fed, air-cooled weapon and how you take it apart and how you put it back together. So I think that we're talking about you have to be holistic in your learning is what it comes down to.
Real quick, Jonathan, let me go first, please.
Yes.
Uh-oh.
So back to learning styles and lecture styles. I somewhat agree. My problem is that in those lecture style college courses, you have a professor up there who is oftentimes mediocre at best, and they're reading a PowerPoint presentation with fill-in-the-blank PowerPoint slides that you're sitting there and you're writing words into the blanks. Why am I paying thousands of dollars to do this when I can read the whole textbook at home in my own time, make my own little notes, study it my own way, and learn it way better? I am a horrible test taker. However, I have been extremely successful in my career. I outperform every one of my coworkers in every job I've had. Okay, that sounds a little too much, but seriously, there's a lot to be said about learning styles, auditory, visual, tactile, and everyone is different. And our current model only caters to lecture style learners, which sounds like you two are of the that's the most
no, I'm gonna say this. No, I don't agree with that. I don't agree with I'm not catering to lecture style, because here's the thing. Certain things have to be taught that way. That's just reality of life. Now, if you have a bad professor, that says you have a bad professor. That's the reality of the situation. All right. Because the gluttony we have of people coming out with master degrees and PhDs that end up going and teaching so they can make some money, because the system is bloated. It needs people to fill seats, and it needs people to talk to those people in those seats. So you're going to get a lot of mediocre professors. I know, even at Harvard, you're going to get mediocre people because they need bodies. And my thing is, I agree with you. There's people I know that screwed the LSAT test and got like a 143 and are the best lawyers I've ever seen.
Exactly.
So I know people who got 17s on the ACT test and have become very successful in their career field. So I think tests measure certain things and this and that. I don't think that grades reflect what you learn.
Which is why I don't just solely value the degree, because it's all based on that grading system, that testing system, which misses the intelligence of a lot of other individuals, such as myself.
Yeah. But I think the proof comes out in the pudding, though. I think that when you get out into, as we call it, the Marine Corps, when you get out to the fleet, the same thing happened in the Marine Corps. We had guys in the platoon, our guide and our squad leaders were like Captain America in boot camp. Sure. When we got to the fleet, the guy who you thought was the screw up was the best Marine. All right. So that's just life. Life is not a degree. Again, is a tool, and a tool is only as good as the person who's using it.
Exactly.
Right? So let me say,
I don't base it all on degrees.
Of course. So to your point, we going back to the levels of intelligence. My son is not a lecture learner either. I think at the time there was only 8 intelligence. He learns by doing or putting his hands on something.
Yeah.
So I'm steering him not towards college.
Good.
To a skilled trade where he can use his hands, because that's where his intelligence is going to thrive at. So I completely understand what you're saying, Christina.
Okay.
And I've told my kids that I gave my kids the whole breakdown of the public school education. So tough. This was about 4 years, maybe 5 years ago. My daughter came, she's like, Dad, I don't even want to go to school after you told me this. And I thought about some of the things they're teaching me to be uniform. She didn't want to go to school anymore. I said, baby, you need to go, because math and reading and writing, you got to get those. There's no way around that. I said, but what's going to be the most meaningful is the relationships you make with the people there.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. And so that's where I go to the college thing. There's Going to college is more than just the degree. It's the relationship.
I agree 100% with that.
Yeah. So
but I think
hold on. And here's the problem with, and this lends to the system, particularly the judicial system, when we're talking about lawyers going to college and the philosophies you learn about law, and then you're getting out to the real world, and if you're judging people who don't look like you and you haven't gone to school with these people and had interaction, you don't have the right level of empathy. This is why, yes, we need to temper college, but you still need to take your ass there, because you interact with people who are not from your old ass quote-unquote town you live in, in the hood where you live in, and you come and you get the mix, and you learn how to deal with other people and other cultures for the very first time for some people. Let me end with this. My mother told me this, and my mother told me this. She said, when you go to school, don't just hang around people that look like you.
Okay.
Make friends with everyone.
Can I ask you a question, sir?
It
How do you feel
wasn't
about?
the only time I had that experience, but
How do you,
if I was in the hood, my only experience where people from other cultures would have been in college, and you need to have that.
Yeah,
how do
I
you feel
agree.
about historically black colleges, then, sir?
I don't have a problem with them because they're historically black. That doesn't
No, I'm
mean there
saying
aren't other people there.
no, but for the most part, they're majority African American.
They are.
All right. How
Uh,
do you feel about? I mean, that is not reflective of the real world in any way, shape, or form. I'm just
no,
asking
no,
for
no.
argument's sake. How do you
So
feel about?
I'm gonna tell you. I'm gonna tell you a conversation I had with my friend. My friend said,
All
"I
right.
want my son to go to a black college. Blah 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 blah. Well, he'll get the support." I said, "You do realize that some of the major universities have black or minority-centered groups to help them and have that same level of support you can get at a black college. The major colleges are going to have the better and more resources. Period. End of story. Change his whole mind." So my point is, if that's what you want to do, I'm okay with it. But understand this. You're right. It is not the real world.
Okay, so real quick, Jonathan, I agree with you that it is a stepping stone to the real world. It's kind of like a testing site where you're away from home for the first time. So if college was affordable for all, I would 100% say that every single person should go away to school, some sort of program for a length of time, because you're right, that's when you really you sink or swim. That's when you learn how to you enter adulthood, like stage 1 of adulthood. Stage 2 comes after you leave that protected bubble, but it is a great transition from being under 18, under your parents household, and then going to away to college. It's a safe area. You're around people with similar goals, everyone's similar age, and you figure it out on your own with mom and dad far away. And then it's a great transition to the real world after that. So you're right. If it was affordable, I would say everyone should go for the sheer personal journey experience and life skill experience. Even though I believe the curriculum is trash, the grading system is trash, and it's all
I
just
feel you.
ridiculous.
Well, I'm going
I
to
feel
say
you.
this. I think it all, again, I think that, and I'm just going to leave it at this. I think that it is not an either or situation. I agree with Jonathan that some form of advanced education and advanced experience after high school is necessary for people. To some people, that will be a university, if their career field that they've chosen requires that. All right. Like I said, and I don't want my surgeons not going to university.
Absolutely.
Period. All
I
right.
want
And
them to
I
fucking
don't
live
want
there.
my surgeons, my teachers, my social workers, my psychologists. I want them to go to university.
Absolutely.
All right.
Absolutely.
And that being said, though, I agree with you guys that the learning models, there are different learning models. And I think that all of our education system needs to embrace different learning models. I think, though, that what you talked about, Christina, as far as the professor that sits there points at the slides, unfortunately, that we have that because you have so many people getting degrees that have to get these jobs, but then you have a beast that needs to be fed. This whole university system is getting pumped up by all this loan money that they're offering degrees, and they need people to teach them. So they're just grabbing anybody that's got the hookup that goes to teach for these classes. And a lot of them, or I won't say a lot of them, but you're going to find bad college teachers. You're going to find bad high school teachers, like we just talked about. I remember talking to one of my son's history teachers about how they were teaching history. I'm like, bro, you have to teach this in an applicable way that makes sense and they understand why they're learning it, not just this happened on this date. We had a fundamental disagreement about it, but ultimately Jonathan, I guess you'll be proud of me on this. Ultimately, I had a higher degree of education in history than that person. So I had to pull the card on him and say, as a member of the Organization of American Historians, but at the end of the day, I hear what you guys are all saying. We're all saying the same thing. We're just taking it from a little different area.
Yeah,
but
I'm
we
just
believe
right.
that education is a tool. Use it as best you can, but there's a whole lot of life experience you need to gain. And then that's, like I said, some people are going to excel, some people are not. But at the end of the day, I think that, I'm not against education. I'm for always getting education in whatever means it is, be it, like I said, the trades, the military, barber school, beauty school, university, whatever you do, do what you do. But I do think that our high schools do need to start teaching people, our junior high schools, understanding the basics about society and civics, so we can maintain a strong society, and understand what's at stake, how important it is, how fragile these things are. That being said, we have chatted for almost 2 hours, so I'm going to go before people start looking for me. That being said, Christina, you're welcome to always come and chat with us.
Thank you.
But we'll make sure we let you know a few days ahead of time.
Yeah, a few.
Please,
For real.
guys, I'm a planner.
Bitch,
We're
you
gonna
cussed
be
me
a few
out.
days ahead of
Low-key
time.
cussed me out.
All right.
Please, 24-hour notice minimum, please.
Okay, well, I'm going to work with Jonathan to make sure that he gives you that notice.
Yeah, I don't want to
appreciate
get cussed out no more, man.
I appreciate you being on.
Thank you for having me.
All right, you guys take it light. Have a nice holiday if I don't speak to you all. Peace.
All right. Merry Christmas.